Hi everyone! I know, I've been away, I've been doing exams, I've been studying, and I am happy to say that I have finished 5 exams in the last few weeks. And yes, it was very difficult to say in the least, and I have been reading your comments that you've been leaving on my channel, and this video is to answer them all for you and to give you some tips on law school, to specify post-law school, like LPC, because that's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing my joint LLM-LPC. So I've been getting a lot of emails and questions from you guys, and I promised myself and I promised you guys that I would make a video answering them for you today. Okay, so this video is going to be answering questions that you guys have been asking me, and also some tips for you newbies who are just beginning the LPC. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed newbies. Okay, let's begin. So first off, I want to say that I think my biggest regret this year was postponing my exams. Because of COVID, my university, the University of Law, had allowed us to postpone exams, and it's called the no detriment policy because of COVID. I'm very thankful in a way because I was able to spread out my exams, but in a way it was bad because I am the queen of procrastination and I should have done a few earlier. We were allowed to postpone more than once, so I ended up waiting almost a whole year to do these exams, but I did 3 this past year, and I just did 5 these past few weeks. And the thing is, the ones I did before were not proctored. I had built up in my head this big, scary villain, this monster that I thought would be the proctored exam. Because if you read up, first we had Proctor U, and now we have Respondus. I have never experienced Proctor U because a lot of my colleagues were having such horrible experiences, and it only added to my anxiety and premeditative fear of what it would be like. So I kept postponing, and it just happened to be so that in the last few months were having so many technical issues and difficulties with Proctor U that they switched over to Respondus. So my very first experience with a proctored exam, don't get confused, proctored just means that it's people are watching you, you're recorded, your screen's recorded, and you're locked out on your computer, you can't open any other things. It's to prevent you from cheating and stuff, so they can see your screen, they can see you, whatever. But one of the programs is actually called Proctor U, and then the second one is called Respondus. That is the one that we're using currently, and that is the very first program that I've had experienced with these online proctored exams where they're watching you. And honestly, it's not so bad. I think one of the biggest setbacks that you as a law student are going to have to deal with is you building it in your head into something so much worse than it is. And I think this is very common, that your biggest enemy is yourself. Most of us law students are type A personalities. I'm weird. I'm like a hybrid between a type A and a type B. I can switch between them. One minute I can be extremely perfectionist and doing everything really kind of crazy, micromanaging my notes, and everything's just kind of crazy. And the next minute I'm very laid back, and all I care about is just being happy and mental health and being relaxed and calm. But it also is due to my lifestyle. When I was living in Vegas and living a totally different life, I was completely type B personality. But when I got back into, it was really hard for me to switch back into law school because I've been out for a few years, and I was definitely type A. I was always the one answering questions in class and everyone hated me. I was that girl. But I can easily fall off the wagon sometimes, especially you know, when you get into bad habits, study habits and procrastination and things like that. But anyway, let us start with answering some of your questions, and the law school tips are going to come in there because some of your questions were about that anyway. So I'm just going to open my laptop and we are just going to read off some questions that I haven't answered. So if you have no interest in law school or this, you switch off, because this video is catered to my law student viewers. And because it is exam time, I am getting a lot of questions. I want to come for LLM. Which campus is the best? I said there are 2 in London, Moorgate and Bloomsbury. Both of them are situated in the heart of London and close to like a whole bunch of tubes. No more than a couple minutes walk. Moorgate is near the financial district and lots of law firms. Bloomsbury is also in the heart of London, but it's the largest campus, and it's close to major legal and business sectors. There's also a campus in Birmingham, Manchester, and Bristol. And I can't tell you or answer for you which campus is the best. It depends on which city you want to live, first of all. And if you don't have transportation, I think it's best to live in a place like, you know, if you're not going to live in London, because London has amazing transportation. If you're going to choose like Bristol or Birmingham, just make sure that it's accessible and that you're not going to be walking a long time, or it's not going to be difficult for you to get to your classes. So you as a student should be doing some adequate research and checking out these campuses and what people are saying, and Googling the area that these campuses are situated and where you're going to be living, your accommodations. And you have to really assess the logistics of everything, for where you're living and where your classes are, etc. So yeah, that's what my advice is. I chose Bloomsbury because it was just close to the tube and the largest one. So I thought, yeah, I'll meet more people, because I knew that I was going to be online anyway, and I was only there for a week. Due to COVID, we weren't able to fly back for the workshop things that we had planned. It's so sad, because normally these law schools have these like weekend getaways in the Cotswold, and you can just enjoy your time at the same time as like doing law stuff. So that's what I missed out on. But when you get time, could you go through the diagrams for each subject module you are doing, please? Wishing you all the best with your exams. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't have diagrams for every subject, because this is a new study method for me, and I literally just started diagramming for my subject. I can show you a few that I have. I will also make a video where I'm doing the diagram with you, so you can kind of see how I make them. Mumsy bought me this pad. I really like it. It's called the Pacon or Payson, I don't know, Pacon, I would say Pacon. Easel and floor pad, and it is 17 inches by 20 inches, which is 43.2 centimeters by 50.8 centimeters. I take this top thing and I always place it under the first sheet so the markers don't bleed through to the second sheet. And I think it's a really good size. Before that, I was using like my old calendar papers from my desk calendar. And then I was also using from just like my art book. Oh my God, they're all stuck together. Part 36 offer. I wrote this one, this one, this one, and this one. This is just one area. But it really helps, honestly, having to diagram things just visually. There's some concept as a law student, or even a lawyer. There's so many complex subjects that we deal with. Just to read it and wrap your head around it when we have so many to know and to learn and to go through is nearly impossible. To find a method that is efficient and effective. And this method really works for me, because law is one of those subjects that it takes time for it to just click into your head. You have to get used to the scenarios. You have to get used to the structure of questions. It's all going on the LPC, honestly, it's all going to look like a different bloody language. It's very daunting and intimidating because it's nothing you've done in your undergrad. It's nothing you've done on the LLB or the GDL. It's different. You do a lot of theory and law during your LLB or GDL. And it's interesting. It's more interesting than the LPC. But you get to the LPC and suddenly you're put in a scenario where you're a trainee solicitor and you have a supervising solicitor. This is always the scenario. Every single problem question, this is how it's going to be. It's preparing you to be in a law firm or a company or something. But basically, it's preparing you to be in a law firm. And they want you to know how to do everything that may potentially be asked of you. So you're either going to be asked to write a research report or a brief note or an email or a letter for a client or a memorandum. You have to know how to write all these things. All of these things have a certain structure that is expected of you, and you have to cater and adjust your writing to who the receiver may be. It's going to be different if you're writing to your supervisor or another lawyer, and it's going to be very different if you're writing to a client. So you have to adjust and cater your language to who it's going to. And I think my biggest regret is just doing the workshop. At first, I was just always afraid to do the workshops because I didn't know what I was doing. Most law students, like if you're like me, you're a perfectionist and you want to do everything perfectly. But this isn't the way around it. You have to just do it. Even if it's shit, even if it's wrong, you have to try and do it. And then the feedback will come, and then an exemplar will be released. And the exemplars are always to like high standard, that you should, be getting a high grade. You write your paper to that standard. So they don't just give you like a passing exemplar, like something that would just get you like a competent, but it's something that would get you like a VC, something that is to a higher quality of paper. So that's good, and you really should study those. It's very important that you get used to the questions. All the workshops are so vital. I just thought, oh my God, they're a waste of time, because I didn't think the actual exam would be like the workshops, but they are. If you can study the workshops and you get all the workshops done, you'll have a much easier time doing your exams because you're going to be used to it. You're going to be used to the structure. You're going to be used to the type of questions, and you're going to be able to identify like, oh, this is a part 36 question, or oh, like that's the biggest problem with law, right? Like if you're not familiar with the material, you're going to look at a question and be like, I don't know what area this is in. I don't know how to answer the question. I don't know how to do what they're asking of me. Like, that's really scary. But as a law student, you need to know, the more you familiarize yourself, even if you're not doing any work, even if you don't do any work the first day, second day, look at it. It is so beneficial to just read it. I know even that can take a lot. Like often I would just want to bury my head in the sand and just not look at any of it until I had to, like last minute. And then you're panicking like, oh, it's not that bad. If I only learned it, then I wouldn't be struggling right now. So yeah, my advice to you all, if you're starting the LPC, is to just read your workshops, get familiar with it. Even make a diagram on the questions. You get a guide to talk to you, introduce you to the subject and what it's about. Then you get the actual task, and often the task repeats the information in the guide but to a more depth, and then you actually get the instructions within the task. And then after you hand in the task, you get released the exemplar, which is basically the answer to that task. You familiarize yourself and get acquainted with the questions, it's going to be so much easier for you. The biggest difficulty is not being familiar. You've never seen these questions before during your LLB. You've never done anything like this before. It's actual practical procedural work that you are expected to do as a solicitor. So it's so important that you really embrace these instructions, these questions, because this is what you're going to be doing as a solicitor. It's real work. It mimics the reality of what your job is going to entail. So it's really, I cannot stress to you how important it is that you really get to know these questions, because your exams are going to be completely wholly centered around these questions. You're going to see exactly the same type of questions on the exam as your workshop. They might not all be there, because you get around, depending on the exam, you can get around like 4 to 6 problem questions. I'd say 3 to 6 problem questions, because my last elective exam only had 3 questions. The important thing is, like I said, even if you don't attempt the questions right away, just reading through the guide and the task and everything that's expected of you, it's going to start mapping in your brain. You're going to start seeing patterns and similar features in a question that you're going to be able to start recognizing what area the question belongs to, and start recognizing certain things in the question, and it's going to end up clicking in your head because you keep looking at it. So the worst thing you can do is not familiarize yourself and just like do everything last minute or the night before, because everything's new and you're really lost. So that is my biggest advice. Your reading, it does help. Sometimes you can just Google, like while you're doing a question, you can kind of Google certain things that you would normally read about and you'd have like a quick answer. I would say you can always read after if you really need more in-depth and understanding about what you're doing. But there will be a structure provided either on the database, on Elite. They usually have structures in the workbooks, your textbooks, I mean, and you'll be given actual like binder of like workshop questions for like, I think it's drafting and practical legal research, and you'll get a few example structures in there as well. So there's no secret formula to the LPC. Literally, my secret, the key, is to reading. Just read it. Even if you don't do any work, even if you don't even lift a finger, reading it will get it into your head. Even read the task, read the guide, read it again the second day. It's just getting it in your head and becoming familiar. And that is really going to help you. Because like I said, the biggest challenge of this course is you're not familiar with the work. You've never done this thing before. You've never seen these types of questions before, and you don't know what you're doing. It's not just another law topic that you're just asked to like learn and write about and solve someone's like a client's problem. This is actually like procedure. You need to be giving advice to clients. There's rules that apply. And there are steps that need to be taken. So you need to know about these rules and these steps, and basically learning how to advise, how to write a real document that you're going to actually have to hand in. Also too is audio learning. So downloading Speechify or like Narrator's Voice, that's what it's called. But sometimes when there's a long text and I need to do something else, so you're doing your laundry, or you're doing something in the house, it's good to just copy and paste whatever you need to read and put it in the narrator's voice and play it over and over again, because that's getting into your head as well. So if you're an audio learner, I'm definitely an audio learner. I do retain things more when I hear. So when I listen to something, especially if it's over and over again, that helps a lot as well. So I think it's important to know exactly your best method, most efficient way of learning. If you don't know what that is, then this is your time to start trying new things. There's a lot of different seasoned lawyers and ex-law students or current law students who have really good study methods. One may work for one person and may not work for the other. So it is really your prerogative to try different things and find out the method that works best for you. But there's nothing that's going to replace getting used to a subject. That just takes reading. And if you just want to learn the audio, then copy and paste it from from the soft copy that you have from the school online, and play it and listen to it. Listen to the questions. Take notes even, or diagram, whatever works for you. Another method that works for me is talking to somebody about it, like as if you're teaching it, because you're forcing your brain to like recall information, and that actually helps you remember and kind of stamps it better in your mind. Apparently, the harder your mind has to work to remember something and to account for information is the best way for your mind to remember and retain that information. So reading something and then reading the answer to it doesn't actually stick. But reading something and having to recall the answer in your head is what is going to make you stick. So even if you have to read the answer a few times, learn it, know it, put the answer away, try to recall it in your head. Then 5 minutes later, do the same thing. Moon has asked me, "Hey Tina, I hope you're doing well in your LPC study and assessments. Thank you. Just curious, in England, when do applications for training contracts pupillages generally start, and how soon will you get the results to those applications? Have you took any legal internship vacation scheme during or after law school? If so, would you like to share your experience? Looking forward to your next law school vlog." So, Moon, as you know, my journey has changed. My priority is not to get a training contract anymore because I'm thinking of staying in America and being a dual qualified lawyer here. If I get something in England, that's great, but right now it's not my number one thing. I know a lot of colleagues of mine right now already have training contracts, and it's like a requisite of them to finish the LPC before they can actually start working. Like, you literally can apply even when you are on the LLB, so 2 years in advance you can apply for a training contract, and usually you have to do it by the end of the year, like in the spring, summertime, like between April and June. You want to try and get it all done. You're very lucky if you can get a training contract even before you start your LPC. That's pretty amazing. Some firms work out a deal with you, and some firms will actually sponsor you and pay for your LPC if they really want you that bad, and that's great as well. But usually your passing of the LPC is contingent on you staying with the firm. So yeah, as for internships, I did a few internships during my LLB and I really enjoyed it. I did one during the GDL too. Yeah, I did one during the GDL and one during the LLB. It really gave me insight into what it's like to work as a lawyer, and I loved doing my internship for the international commercial law firm I was with in London. I just loved it. It really opened my eyes and I enjoyed it a lot. The other internship was for a mediation firm, and while I liked that, I much preferred the actual solicitor work at the law firm instead of the mediation firm. Mediation's cool too, and you definitely need to know those skills, and it's a big part of being a lawyer. But what I really enjoyed about my internship with the commercial firm was that whatever client that you have and whatever problem that you need to work out, because the solicitor who was the owner of the firm that I was working for at the time needed me to figure out certain things, like this company owns public shares or this company owns private shares and they want to trade on the public forum or they want to trade on the private forum. Like, you're given a real scenario, and I think that's why I found it so interesting too, because they are real live clients, they're real people. It changes everything. It just makes you more alert and you care so much about the situation because they're real people. And often the solicitor will ask you, can you figure out how they can do this without breaking any rules? Can they do this without breaking any stock exchange rules of their country and then of the country that they're trading in? So you have to do research and figure out what they're allowed to do, because at the end of the day, you're being paid to advise. And that's what I found really interesting. But before you can even do that, I had to research and learn about the stock exchange. Like any client that you have to learn about what they do. You have to learn everything about the job. So being a lawyer is so multifaceted. You have to learn about everyone's job, the ins and outs, before you can understand how to help them and to advise them properly. You need to understand their position, what they do, the nature of what they're doing, so you can like pull it all together in your head. You can't just like look at a situation and just start advising law. It doesn't work like that. You really have to understand their background. If you're doing medical liability or whatever, you have to understand the ins and outs of what that specific field, that medical field is, and how they work, because you can't advise properly. So it's really interesting to be a lawyer, because as a lawyer, you have to dip your hands into many pies, and you kind of go into someone else's world for a bit, totally different area of expertise or skill or market, and try and understand what it is that they do and understand the nature of the job, and then you can advise and apply the law accordingly. So anyway, yeah, I have to go to bed now. My voice is becoming coarse from talking so much. I don't make videos as much anymore. See, I need to practice more. I promise to get more videos out, especially now that my exams are done. I love you all. Bye-bye.